story too, wasn't it? I like pasta. I love spaghetti, and I can eat a lot of it sometimes, but I don't think I could eat as much as Big Anthony had to eat. How about you? Well, that was a good story. And remember, each day this week, we're starting our ELA lesson with a Storyline online story and their AR tests. So take an AR test on it and earn some points today on Stregononia. All right. Well, we are going to get into our story for the week. And this story is called Rent Party Jazz. Rent Party Jazz. Do you like jazz music? I love jazz music. It's exciting. It's fun music. I've played some jazz music on my saxophone before. I like playing jazz music. This story is like our story from last week. It's like this Game of Silence. It is historical fiction. So just like the brother and sister who were playing the Game of Silence with their other relatives there, it was a pretend story in a real setting, a Native American setting. This story is a pretend story in a real setting. And this story takes place in New Orleans, Louisiana, one of the home places of jazz. And I think you'll like this story. Let's just get ready to read here. So the genre, as we said, what type of story it is, it's historical fiction. It's a story that's set in a real time and place, in the past. Characters in historical fiction stories, they act, think, and speak like real people from the past would. Characters may use slang that was common during the time period. Now, we didn't have any slang in our Native American story last week, but we had some Native American words we learned, didn't we? Authors of historical fiction might tell the story through third-person point of view. In third-person point of view, the story is told through an outside observer, like somebody watching the action happen. All right, so let's take a look at the illustrations here. By the way, you need to get your reading book out to page 172 so you can read along. Page 172. And as we look at the picture here, what do you notice? What do you notice about the people and the places through the story as you flip through there? What would you like to know about them? Well, it looks like they're having a good time. Looks like there's some people playing music. Looks like a trumpet player maybe. He's got a cool hat on. He's got some bright colors and stripes, kind of like what I would imagine people in New Orleans would play. These women look like they're having a good time and dancing, don't they? This sounds like a lively story. I'm looking forward to it. Now, as always, we want to see who the author is. Who wrote this story? And why did they write this story? Let's find out about the author. The author's name is William Miller. William Miller. He was born on February 8th, 1959. He was raised in Anniston, Alabama. He's the author of numerous award-winning books for children. Mr. Miller's first book, Zora Hurston and the Chinaberry Tree, was originally written as a poem. He credits his high school English teacher with encouraging him to write a picture book based on his poems. His children's books all relate to the African American experience. His books all have themes that focus on struggle, renewal, and celebration. And that kind of ties into our theme for this Rising to Meet the Occasion. Struggling, but celebrating when we meet the occasion, when we conquer our fears, or when we overcome the challenge in our life. So this story has to do with that, I bet. Mr. Miller currently lives in York, Pennsylvania, where he has taught African American literature for many years. All right, so it's going to be a good story, but as always, before we read, there's going to be some words in our story that we might not know. So let's take a look at some words, and these are our vocabulary words for this week. And you'll have a vocabulary activity on them today, as a matter of fact. So you need to listen and make sure you understand what these words mean. They're also in your book as we go through the story. They'll be in your book, and the definitions will be with them on each page. But let's take a look at them before we read the story today. The first word is auction. Auction. Have you heard of an auction? An auction is an event where items are sold to the person who offers the most money. Artworks are often sold at an auction to the highest bidder. You ever seen someone who runs an auction, an auctioneer? Like, give me one, give me two, give me 3, 4, 5, 6. They talk real fast and see who's going to give the most money for the item that's being sold. So they sell those things at an auction. drifting. If you're drifting, you're moving slowly without much direction. You've ever just been riding your bike, you've been pedaling hard and you're pedaling so hard and then you just stop pedaling and you drift. You slow down, you're still moving, you're just kind of going straight, maybe just resting, enjoying the breeze blowing on your face. The bored child was drifting from one place to another around the room. I guess if you're bored, you're like, oh, let's see what there is to eat in the refrigerator. Nothing. Let's go see what's on TV. Nothing. You need to drift from place to place, moving slowly without much direction. Damp. If something is damp, it feels a little wet. A sponge must be damp to be useful, to clean off the stove top or we use a sponge to clean our shower at our house. So damp. Something is damp. It feels a little wet. Spare. Something you can spare is something extra that you have and that you don't really need. A friend might ask if you can spare a pencil. If you have an extra pencil, you could spare one, couldn't you? We think of the word spare tire. Sometimes in our cars, we keep a spare tire. In case we get a flat, we have to put the spare on. And then we've got 3 more words on the next page here. Verses. The verses of a song are the different sections that usually change throughout the song. There are often 2 or 3 verses to a song. So think of your favorite song. It probably has some verses, doesn't it? The lyrics, and then it probably has this word, a chorus. The chorus of a song is the part that's repeated after each verse. So chorus you would hear over and over in a song, and then in between and before the chorus and after the chorus would be the verses throughout the song. The chorus is the part of a song that most people remember the best. Maybe we can look at a song later this week and decide which part is the verses and which is the chorus. That's something fun we could do one day. Then the last word is brimming. If something is brimming, it's full and about to overflow. Sylvia filled the glass until it was brimming. Think of the brim of a cup, the very top part. If it's brimming, it's right up to the top. It's all the way full and it's about to overflow. Okay, now we're going to read our story. We're going to do it a little differently this week because, believe it or not, our story in our reading book on page 172 is actually a Storyline Online story. So instead of me reading it to you this week like I normally do, I'm going to let someone who is an African American read it to you, and she can probably relate to the story even better than I can. And so I'm going to let you listen to the story, but I want you to read along in your reading book. Remember, you're on page 172 in your reading book. Read along to Rent Party Jazz with this Storyline Online reader. Then after you do that, come back to the next slide and we'll talk to about the story just a little bit. Okay, listen to the story now. Enjoy Rent Party Jazz.